Good morning. Courtney asked about formatting style for the personas, whether it should be paragraph form or bulleted list. So I thought I would go through and just talk about some of the examples that Google search turns up. So I put in persona examples in a Google search and it came up. Rather than go into the definitions or text about it, I'm going to go straight to look at the image examples. Because the image examples typically are examples of text-based things, and just go through them, and I'll talk for a few minutes about how I feel about different approaches. Let's look at this one quickly. I tend not to like long paragraphs. I think it's hard to scan, it's hard to get to the main points. Um, so I avoid something that's strictly paragraphs. Um, in a professional context, you're for a persona, you really want to get to the point of the personality you're describing, and prose and text like this just doesn't do it for me. It's not that there isn't a place for it, but by itself, it's not. I don't think it works. So let's go back and look at an example which is more, let's say, list-based. Let's scan around here. Let's look at this one. See if I can blow this up a little bit. Probably not, but hopefully you can see this. So this is nice because, it has a brief paragraph giving some background, but then there are list of things about the person. The interesting thing is it's not even in English, but I really, I sort of get how they're trying to describe this person. Here is age, probably the city they're from, occupation, and here's probably, I don't know what this means, in a sort of a brief background, and here's some lists describing the person. Here the word hobby is the same in English, and I think this is Polish. And close this. Hopefully I can get back. This thing all locks up on me. Okay. Scanning the list. So what's interesting is scanning the list. I'm looking for ones that visually appeal to me. This one's sort of a combination of text and list. Um, use text or prose or sentences to sort of describe nuance about the person that wouldn't be clear in just doing a list or an outline. Then again, I would say, like the prior one in Polish, I liked it when there was just one paragraph giving some context and then list described the person otherwise. Okay, moving along. Okay, so hopefully I can get back to my main list. There we go. Let's see, moving down. Here's an interesting one. This is a bit over the top. This sounds like a persona for an individual, sort of describing herself. But perhaps not, because see, it's in the first person here when it says my role. But all these graphics and stuff do nothing, really don't add. I mean, it's the cue that gives it a visual appeal. And it's sort of well laid out in the sense that all this graphic stuff kind of surrounds the points, but it's too over the top and not necessary at all for what we're doing. Although there, it does have bullet points and list, which are easy to scan with a hierarchy with some, headings and so forth. Get back to this. Scanning. There are certainly a lot of them. I was sort of surprised how many examples there are. Let's see what this one is, because this is pretty good because it's easy to read. It's pretty clean and laid out. I mean, having the reflective text here is not necessary. It's a sort of, doesn't do anything for it. Even though it's not list, the areas being described, or bullet points, it should say, or an outline, the areas being described are clearly marked by these section headings, and they're broken into short sentences that are easy to scan and read rather than a long paragraph. So this is sort of a nice sort of an in between the two in terms of being strictly a list and text and paragraphs. Moving along, go back up towards the top. Let's see. Let's take a look at this one. This one, I'm missing part of the page. So I'm just going to not use this one or look at this one at all. Just got cut off. Let's take a look at this one. This one is a thumbnail, so it's going to be hard to see. Let me go to the website for the image and see where. Yeah, so this is a user experience professional who's showing different things that he does. And here's an example of a persona that he's done, which at first glance I don't particularly like, but it's hard to tell because it's little. So let's get out of here. Let's see. Let's look at this one. It doesn't have an image. Yeah, so this is like two different personas on one page. Pretty brief, but it gets the point across. And I would say if there was a picture or a tagline or something, this is not too bad. I mean, it's not necessary to say more for the sake of saying more. The point is not to be, you're not going to impress anyone by professionally with lots of words. Lots of words don't necessarily equate to competency or understanding of the subject, but you don't want to be too short either. This seems a little thin in terms of sort of reflecting any depth of knowledge about the subject. But it could suffice if you're doing a number of them. Let's just look at this one here. Okay, so it's a little small. This is like sort of a template. Not too bad. The narrative here, user goals, so forth. I don't know what it says. What I want our persona to do. Our persona wants to. So it's kind of from the perspective of the client. But one simple narrative. I wish this was 2 paragraphs. I know it's a Greek text, but less. And here's your information over here. Pretty well laid out, easy to look at. And you should come up with a layout that you think reflects the way you want to reflect yourself as a professional in doing this. There's no one way that. So part of this assignment is to come up with, a format you think that works in terms of what you want to say and express. This one's not too bad. It's kind of short. Let's look at this person's page here. I've seen it a couple times. And then Agile Coaching. Okay, once again, it's a portfolio site for somebody. This kind of cute sort of I guess in Spanish, showing a persona that's just written out. I guess it's this guy. He wrote a book, Agile UX. Agile is a whole scheme of working that we're not really approaching. Here's the persona template that he was referring to before. Yeah, I guess we've seen a couple of this guy's stuff. Here's that the persona that we saw in the Google list. You got to remember that these personas are working for these professionals, and if they're successful, they're doing something right. So you can learn from these folks in terms of the approaches they're taking. Once again, it's a bullet list. It's kind of long. I bet this could have been maybe more concise. I don't particularly like the formatting. I think this title is really big. I think the spacing here is inconsistent. But anyways, so I'm going on and on here a bit, but there are a lot of examples. Let's look at this first one here. This is pretty slick in terms of the layout, using the colors and columns to define different parts of it. I mean, you could look at this, and what you don't want to do is be redundant. In other words, you don't want to read sort of the paragraph, giving the context or the background, whatever you want to say, and have it also be said in the list. They really should be complementary. It's not like you have to restate what's here. It's like when I get a cover letter for a resume for a job application, and the cover letter is just what's on the resume in paragraph form. It's like, you really tell me something different, tell me something new using these two contexts. But this one's pretty nice to look at. Pretty heavy with the color, but it's well laid out and sort of well designed. A little footer here and so forth. Here's the website it came from. So here, this is really long though. If it's 2 pages on the same person, I mean, how complex can an individual be that you need to describe 2 pages in order to understand their behavior, to how they're going to use a web page? But you should also read these examples and and to see to what extent the detail people go into. This one I like a lot. Let's see if full size image is bigger. No, let's go back. So even though we can't read them, I can see what's going on. Very easy to read, laid out. It's not overbearing. It doesn't have big bold colors, but it has some use of color, and the gray is going to define the area and create the layout. Has a simple rule in the middle here. It's sort of a combination of a bullet list and short descriptions, and in a sense, each description, each part of the persona has a header, so you know exactly what's being discussed there. Let's see if we can go look at this person's site. And who is this? User experience and experience with user personas. So this site, or this part of this site, is all about personas. Feel free to go in and read and pull out what you can about I guess it's a blog about personas and what they say. Sort of some interesting background here. Presenting personas. So here's an example. Oh, see, you can get a PowerPoint template of this persona. Go get what you want. I would mix it up a little bit and change the color slightly. If they're giving the PowerPoint to users, say it's free to use, they haven't sort of posed any restrictions on it, I guess, in terms of the layout and copyright. I guess you could copyright you can only copyright the words. You really couldn't copyright the layout. So here's one example. I find the picture maybe is a little big. And also I think 8.5 by 11 in portrait would be better. It fits better in reports and kind of things you hand out and how it appears on pages on websites. But websites now with iPads and stuff, I guess horizontal and portrait doesn't make much difference, or landscape or portrait. So this is a good example there to use. I'll just wrap up with one more. Here's an interesting one in terms of using a sort of a site map or a diagram to kind of describe this person in terms of all the various bits or nodes or circles of influence on Angie here, showing her professional world, showing her personal world, and I suppose this could work. Once you get into the realm of diagrams, it brings in a whole new issues in terms of design and layout and what's effective. But it kind of works, and if you want to experiment with a diagram, feel free. I maybe wouldn't do it for this, perhaps later on, and later on I'll be doing a personas again, so maybe there you might want to pursue that and think about it. But it's an interesting idea. Question is, looking at this, can I get a quicker, better sense of the person um, through this diagram rather than list and text. Um, I'm not sure about that. In fact, I bet this little paragraph here kind of describes everything we're seeing, so something to think about. I won't end with that one. I'll end with another text one. So many examples. I'll look at this one because it seems to have a graph. And yeah, so it looks like this graph is showing areas of activity of this person. It's not, some list here kind of works. This is, no, right, not badly laid out. Um, see the full size image. Yeah, so I got to remember that in Google Images, it's showing you the full size image. The website for the image. Personas are not a dark. Jared Spool is a fairly well regarded luminary in web design and interface design. I'm going to see him at a conference in June in Boston. Um, Actually, it looks like he's making a little bit of he's sort of implying there could be some improvement in this persona. Anyway, so I'll stop there. So you see there's lots of different examples. I guess the main point is readability, if that's a word. Concise and it's well laid out, attention to detail. Don't overwhelm the reader with words. More words doesn't mean better. And a healthy balance of a sentence or two just putting the person's context and then list to kind of really to explain who the person is, what they're about in relation to the behavior you're looking at, in this case college websites. So I'll stop there and good luck. I hope that's helpful. Any questions, let me know.